Okay, so here we are at the airfield in Fife. It's just outside a town called Glenrothes, which is one of Scotland's new towns. You just witnessed Captain Dave there with to pull the plane out through the hangar doors. It's not all fun, you know, when you got in these planes. Then we had to manoeuvre it round about the plane that was sitting in its way. Luckily it had been fueled up, but that blue thing there, that's where they fuel the aeroplanes. There's one actually getting fueled at this moment in time. So I chose the Top Gun music to dub to the video because it just seemed quite apt. I was trying to take the pee out of Captain Dave a wee bit. So the video is shot using a Sony HDV camcorder, a Sony HC3 to be particular, and it shoots in 1440 by 1080i at 50 Hz. So once I've got my footage, I can use a tool called Sony Vegas 9 to add the background music, the transitions, cut any rubbish out, and there's a wee plane heading off down the runway. Quite a short runway here at Glenrothes, certainly compared to our destination airport, which was Oban. We'd planned this trip the day before. The trip took place on, was it a Sunday? Yeah, it was a Sunday. So we'd planned it on the Friday at work, because Dave, Mary and I all worked together at the same time, and Dave had put the invitation out to anyone who wanted to join him for a flight. So we're just really lucky with the weather that day. It was an absolutely perfect day for flying, considering it was February the 18th, 2007. It was in fact more like a summer's day, it's got to be said. Once we got to Oban and landed, you just would have thought it was June. It was that nice. So here's Captain Dave at the plane, try to spark it up. They don't start as easy as cars, these things. I've been up with Dave 3 times now actually. That was my first flight, this one. After that, Dave took me up one night after work. We went from Glenrothes, we went over Edinburgh Airport, over the Forth Bridges in fact, circled round about them, over Edinburgh Airport and round the city bypass to kind of Duddingston, far side of Leith type Musselburgh area, and then retraced our route backwards. And the other time recently Dave took me up, when was that, in November 2008, we went, it was an absolutely beautiful day, we went up to the highlands of Scotland and they were all covered in snow. I'm going to make a DVD of that in the near future. So now we're going into the danger zone. Obviously takeoff and landing are the most dangerous parts of these flights. There's a little helicopter parked there. So at this point in time I'm in the front seat beside Dave. It's dual controls, so I had to watch what I was up to, not to put us into a steep dive or anything daft like that. And Mary's in the back. The plane really takes 4 people. There's one coming in to land. So, but there were only 3 of us because Dave had done some calculations based on weight and distance and fuel and things, and thought it was best just for 3 to go to Oban that day. It's got to be said the back seat's probably the best seat because you can easily move between the sides, and the front seat, as you can see, you've got the propeller in your way quite a lot. On the way back we swap over, and I'm in the back, Mary's in the front, and that's rather interesting because Dave didn't change the trim of the plane, and me being rather heavier than Mary, shall we say, when the plane took off from Oban, it kind of lurched backwards a bit, gave Dave a bit of a surprise, but we're okay. So this is us about to take off. We've all got the headsets on because when you're in these planes you can't hear a damn thing for the drone of that engine. Thus, so much music in this DVD. So as I said, Glenrothes is not the longest of runways, and you can see that green grass at the end approaching very rapidly, and you're hoping up, and then we're up. You can see there wasn't much to spare. So this is Bonnie Fife. Takes a wee while before it gets really interesting, it's got to be said, because you're pretty low, you can't see that far. There's not that much to see about this area anyway. You've got your lock leaving, which is basically on the right hand side of the M90 motorway. M90 running from Edinburgh all the way up to over the Fratton Bridge at Perth. It goes to Dundee, doesn't it? After that it's A90 from Dundee up to Aberdeen. So that looks like an old kind of quarry, a flooded quarry of sorts. So music wise, we've had a couple of Top Gun things, so it's about time to put that one to bed. Obviously, with it being a flight over Scotland, I want to get some Scottish music in there, so what better than the good old Proclaimers. So that was Mary there in the back, being able to pick what sides that she's going to be taking her photographs from. So we start to see things in the distance now. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Even though it's a high definition camcorder, sometimes the picture's not the clearest, and that's because of atmospheric conditions really. And it never helps when you've got that propeller in front of you like we've got just now. Now, at the time of this flight I wasn't particularly into hill climbing, but since the flight I have climbed Ben Nevis, Forth Bridges. I like this bit because it shows how they're splayed out. You always think when you're going over that Forth Road Bridge that the two of them run parallel with each other. That shot just shows you not at all. Yes, I think a bit of the climbing the Ben Nevis thing was inspired by going on this flight and seeing these mountains and thinking, boy, I gotta go and do that. Now these aren't mountains, these are just hills. The Ochils. So our flight path just now, we're leaving Glenrothes and we're flying along basically parallel with the Firth of Forth, past Grangemouth, and that's the power station there, the quarry, and we're going to head towards kind of Loch Lomond and then keep heading out. One of the attractions that we wanted to see was the Corryvreckan whirlpool, and we'd kind of timed it as well on the internet you can see times when it's meant to be more impressive than other times. Apparently you can hear it from 10 miles away and things like that. Obviously in the plane we're not going to hear it, but we were hoping we were going to see some whirlpool activity. So the Corryvreckan whirlpool, oh, that's a big house, isn't it? I wonder who stays in a house like that. So the Corryvreckan whirlpool lies at the north end of the Isle of Jura, between Jura and Scarba. That's looking back to the Kincardine Bridge and Grangemouth, and certainly shows a meandering River Forth at that point in time. Now that's the M9, so that means we must be quite close to Stirling Castle. So the music changes now to the Bonnie Banks of Loch Lomond, because that's going to be our next port of call. Now these wind farms, goodness, they're everywhere now. Love them or hate them. Camcorder's in autofocus mode, so sometimes struggles a bit with shots like that. Now, those two are on my immediate horizon to be climbed. Quite fancy doing them. You can apparently do the two of them in the one day. They're quite high as well, just under 4,000 feet. Ben Nevis is 4406 and it's the highest in Britain. So those two are quite close to Loch Lomond. There's Ben Lomond itself, it's the most southerly of the Munros. I did that in October 2008. Again, I got a brilliant day and the views from it were just immense. I would urge anyone to climb one of these Munros. What an exhilaration it is. So you've got Ben Lomond, and the other side, well, that's us kind of looking back the way and northwards. But across the other side of Loch Lomond, you've got the Arrochar Alps, of which the most famous of them is called the Cobbler, which I climbed in December 2008. It doesn't quite make a Munro, it's 100 odd feet short, but it's got some absolutely astounding rock features up there. There's the Ben Lomond. It's about the 180th highest Munro in Scotland. So there's Loch Lomond itself. Loads of islands in Loch Lomond. Some of them are actually inhabited by kangaroos. Not kidding. So at the top end of Loch Lomond you've got Tindrum and Crianlarich, and then you're into the Glencoe area. Unfortunately we didn't quite fly over Glencoe. Maybe I can persuade Captain Dave one day to take us up there. So Loch Lomond's got the golf course where the Scottish Open's played. We fly right over that. Sit down there. It's probably the Arrochar Alps at the top right hand side. Oh, we're zooming in on the golf course. So this is us, we're kind of crossed over Loch Lomond. Ben Lomond is a really nice Munro. It's quite unique as well that when you climb it you can go up one route and come back down a different route. So it's not boring. That's the Faz Lane Naval Base there. You can see it's got that kind of barrier round about it. You're certainly not allowed to fly over the top of that. between Loch Long and Loch Lomond, there's also an MOD armaments place. Don't think you're allowed to fly over that either. It's quite big. So Captain Dave's got all these areas marked in his map that you're not allowed to fly over. So that's a good view there down the Clyde estuary. You've got Isle of Arran out there. That was a strange kind of feature in the water. It was probably hot water meeting cold water or something causing that effect. Now we're kind of entering a part of the world where I'd never been to before. There's not many roads about this neck of the woods. So it was certainly good to fly over it in the plane and be able to take it all in. Arran's called Scotland in miniature. It's got a mountain there, Goat Fell, which, whilst not quite a Munro, I think it's kind of in the realms of the Cobbler, 2,800 feet maybe. Hunterston terminal down there. As you can see, the weather just getting better and better as we head out here. I'm just so lucky that day. When you're out in a plane like this, you cannot enter a cloud because you just don't know what will ever happen. So you need to avoid clouds. So luckily that day, the clouds are up really high and we get good views. So when I edited this video, I sat with a map, quite a large scale map of Scotland in front of me, making out all these estuaries and hills and mountains and towns and trying to put names to places. It took me quite a while. So chose this music because we're heading to the world famous Corryvreckan whirlpool. So I thought, Highway to Hell, superb, can't whack that one. So there we get a really good view of Ben Nevis. How good's that? So that's in February and it's still got a healthy covering of snow. When I climbed it in June, it still had snow at the top and it was sunny at the top, and then the next thing we had hailstones and no visibility, and then the clouds disappeared and you had great views up the Great Glen. It's just amazing. So this is our first view there. At the tip, nose of the plane, there you go, Corryvreckan Gulf, which I've actually sailed through since in the Waverley, which likes to leave every year from Oban, and there's a sailing on the Sunday called Four Lochs in a Whirlpool. So this year when we went on it, which was May 2008, it only did 3 lochs in a whirlpool because it was fighting the tide all the time and it was going really slow. But we did make it through that Corryvreckan whirlpool. Unfortunately the day was terrible and my camcorder ended up getting water in it and wasn't working very well at all. In fact, I thought it knackered it, but it did dry out okay, thank goodness. Jura is a very interesting island. The north part of Jura is totally uninhabited, but there is a kind of farmhouse thing where George Orwell stayed for many years and wrote the book 1984. And there's also some story about him getting into trouble or try to swim in the Corryvreckan Gulf. Not too sure what was going on there. The geography of that Gulf of Corryvreckan is amazing. It's got that pinnacle under there that rises up to about 30 metres from the surface, forcing all the water to come up and then go over the top of the pinnacle and back down into a gully at the far end. And it's just meant to be amazing there when these tides are ebbing and flowing, because it comes up the Sound of Jura on one of the transitions and out through the Gulf on the other one. There's lots of good footage on the web of the Gulf of Corryvreckan whirlpool. So we've almost reached hell. Mary wanted this song. She thought it was very apt. I've got to agree with her there. So we're almost on top of that Gulf of Corryvreckan. That's Jura. It's absolutely amazing. Look at the layers of the rock and how they kind of all point at an angle. And it looked absolutely beautiful that day. You'd have thought you could just have went down there and did a bit of sunbathing in one of those secluded coves. And you probably could have, it was that nice a day. But it was February, kind of mid to late February, the 18th. So Dave gave us a wee bit of a circle round about there to get some good footage. I've got to say at this point that not only am I using the camcorder, but I'm flicking between it and my camera. But probably Mary got the best snaps in her camera because she could take them all the time. That's why my work's a bit jittery sometimes. And all these reflections of seats and things that you see in plane windows. Very unfortunate, nothing you can do about it though. So here's the famous Gulf of Corryvreckan. No sign of any whirlpools at all that day. And nor was there the day I sailed through it on the Waverley paddle steamer. No one stays in the Isle of Scarborough. The far side of it's very interesting when you're sailing up. You sail through the Gulf and out to the Atlantic and up that far side that you can see there when you're in the Waverley. There's lots of nice waterfalls and things as you head back to the port of Oban. So we're in Dave's plane, and that's as we've done our circuit over the Corryvreckan. And here we start to look back south to where we've came from, and the Isle of Arran. And the light here is just astounding. There's Arran there, right in the middle of the picture. Isn't that beautiful? It's just so tranquil and picturesque. Certainly knew we were having a great experience that day up on the plane, and we did speak to each other quite constantly, but you don't pick any of that up at all. Maybe just when we land at Oban you get a wee bit of chit chat. I mean, I have left some engine noise in, as well as having the sound effects, background music, but you don't pick any of our chit chat up at all. So this is kind of looking back, and Mary, who was better at geography than me at this time, pointed out to me the famous bridge over the Atlantic, which is down there, which I've since driven over. when I went to Oban the other year. Went down to the island of Seal. Got some nice photographs down there. Little humpback bridge. We're about 10-15 miles south of Oban. So that's the great view of Ben Nevis again. Excuse me. That's the island of Carrera, but the plane was basically flying over there. So there's a place down here where school kids from our area of Scotland, the Lanarkshire area, when they're in primary 7, they go for a Monday to Friday up here. It's called Kilbowie, and I'm going to zoom in on it soon. And they get all sorts of good activities there. Kayaking, mountain climbing, 30 feet high cliffs. So to the left hand side of the picture there, we did catch a wee glimpse of sky. Not very much, but worth pointing out, I think. So down there is Kilbowie, the kind of building sitting at the foot of those cliffs. And I think though they're kayaking, they kayak out to that little island there. So I'm pointing out Oban now. So Oban's served by road obviously, and it has got a railway station as well, and it's got a port, and you can see one of the Calmac ferries that go to the Inner Hebrides, Mull, etc. And that's where we sailed from that day when we took the Waverley paddle steamer down to the Four Lochs in a whirlpool tour, which was a bit of a washout. Rained all day, and then the next day it was really annoying because the sun was splitting the trees. And I think it spends 4 days in May going to various places from Oban. Definitely worth having a look on the internet. waverleyexperience.com or co.uk it is, I think. Just do a Google for Waverley Experience. For me, the wife and 2 kids, it was about £76, which I thought was worth it. And if we'd got the weather, it'd have been well worth it. So you can see McCaig's Folly in Oban, up on the hill. It's a round structure that he never had the money to finish off. So next up we start crossing over. This is Loch Riveretif, and we've got the Connell Bridge, which is basically the gateway to the Highlands. So you come up the A82 to Crianlarich, and then the A85 over to the Connell Bridge. Cross that, and it's A82 all the way up to Fort William, and then up the Great Glen to Inverness. Glenrothes. That's quite a big mineral. Not on my immediate list, but I'll definitely be up there one day to climb that one. So kind of first sight now of the Oban Airport, or airfield, shall we call it. There's a seaplane flies from Glasgow to Oban every day as well. Takes off from the city centre of Glasgow and the River Clyde. I'm not sure exactly where it lands in Oban, presumably in the sea. It might have wheels as well, no idea. Big long runway. So Captain Daves went to the north end and he's going to land north to south, heading back to the Connell Bridge River. So I've cut the music at this point because I couldn't get a full song in. It's amazing how quickly the ground approaches. You think you're miles away at this point in time, and then 20 seconds later or so you're on the ground. Hey, out the front. Catch that propeller again. You got to pay landing fees to land here. I think it was about £15. Yeah, there's Captain Dave saying something. Yeah, I thought it was going to stall there. Aviation fuel's actually quite expensive. And that recent trip that Dave and I made, I think it was £1.40 a litre. So you've got to pay VAT and duty on it for light aircraft, although the commercial aircraft get away with all that. So Dave calculates the cost of the flight in flight hours, and we thirded up on it. So what we do now is we head off to a local hotel that was doing a rather excellent cavalry meal. And we had a bite to eat for about an hour, probably another hour walking there and getting back. Well, Dave's got an 8th share in that plane, I believe. So he does partly on it. I think that's called the Connell Arms. I really can't remember actually. But it does a Sunday cavalry, and I've been back since. And it's to die for. Now you've got to remember this is February. It's a very imposing mountain. There's quite a few other people in for lunch at the same time as us. Quite a few of them were flying into Oban as well. So while I was waiting Dave to give the plane the once over, spotted this little microlight thing. And I actually catch it landing and taxiing in as well. They're a much cheaper way of flying than the plane. So we came basically the low way. We didn't have to fly over any high mountains or anything. But the way back, we don't retrace our route. We head from Oban out to Tyndrum. That's kind of running along the A85, and then we head off to Glenrothes and on to the kind of Fife area from there. So we're going to fly over or fly between, shall we say, some pretty high mountains, and we're going to be flying about 4,000 feet. I think. And remember, we can't afford to disappear into a cloud or we've had it. So there's a bit of a queue here at Oban to take off. And remember what I said earlier on about after Mary and I had swapped. Mary's probably a dainty, let's say 9 stone for argument's sake, and I'm probably certainly over 1.5 times that. So the plane's got a bit of a different feel to it here for Captain Dave. Let's see what happens. So when you take off, you always take off with full throttle. Here we go. Dave likes driving on his own side of the road here, obviously, rather than going right down the middle. It's purely up to you what you do when you're a pilot of a plane. Music again. Oh, see how we... Oh! There's that Connell Bridge again, and I'm trying to zoom in on the place we were at for lunch, but I hit the wrong houses. It's the one just behind them is the hotel. So we're heading up to the kind of excuse me, north of that airfield again. Let me have a sip of water. It's probably Mull. The Connell Bridge down there at the tip of the wing, the airfield. Now David just went a wee bit north of here. Could have flown down Glencoe, which is an opportunity missed. You can see there the caravan moorings, empty as it's February. I presume that's for people with who I call shed draggers, towing their caravans in there and hooking them up to the electrical point. Catch a bit of Ben Nevis there in the background. Ben Nevis left to climb at 10 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock at night before he got back down to Glen Nevis, where we were spending the night. That was me getting a text message up. So So we're kind of level with some cloud. Hey, we don't want to go into that. We need to keep avoiding that type of stuff. So this is the Horseshoe Dam. Corryvreckan. Used to generate hydroelectric power when people put their kettles on at the break in Coronation Street. They'll have that running, generating power. Then during the night, they'll be pumping the water back up into the dam, creating some potential energy. Very wasteful process, but allows you to have some capacity when it's needed. I've seen some really nice photographs with that castle. Never managed to make it to that one. It's need to get a boat to it, I think. U-shaped valleys galore. A geography teacher would be in his element, shall we say. You spot something down here through the cloud that's maybe a trig point with the sun glinting off it. I tried to zoom into it and just totally missed it. It's very difficult. Some of those hills over that direction must be Glencoe, Buccleuch of Moor, things like that. Three Sisters. Tarn. Yeah. A lot of people who have watched the DVD have had a good laugh at that bit. Bit of geography. Any little pond at the top of a mountain is called a tarn. Nothing special about that one. So I thought this music was quite apt because of the height we're at, living on the ceiling. What was amazing was how few roads there were. There's those two mountains again. I need to get up them in the near future. They're only about an hour and a bit from our house. Oh, that's the entrance to Glencoe. And then we're going to fly over Loch Tay a little bit. And there's big mountains at Loch Tay as well. The kind of West Highland ways round about there. That's the start of it's not the start actually. It's where the West Highland Way starts snaking its way through Glencoe. It was amazing to go up the Captain Dave again in November 2008 and see the likes of these mountains completely covered in snow. It's just a totally different perspective again. Must be Benmore and Binstobian again. Benmore slightly higher than Binstobian, and that's probably Ben Lomond behind them, because you can quite clearly see those two from Ben Lomond and from the Cobbler. From top of Ben Lomond I could actually see all the way up to Ben Nevis, no problem at all. I was absolutely in awe. During this stage of the flight I thought, this is absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like this in my life. How lucky am I today? That was one of the compelling reasons why I've spent so much time in front of the computer, editing this footage, doing a commentary. This big mountain at Lochte. Looking south again, into the sun. This is a 12-inch version of that song. A bit mad at times. You've got some marks on the windows. You sometimes pick up as well as the reflections. Well, it's got to be said, the person who used the plane before us had the windows nicely cleaned for us. I've driven along Lochte from the north to the south. Very nice drive. So there's a cracking little rapids down there, and there's a humpback bridge across the road. See it? There in the middle of the picture right now. A lot of people park there and just walk down that stretch of river. So you've got Lochte, and just south of it you've got the Ben Lawyers, that's the name of that mountain, just shy of 4,000 feet. Obviously need to climb that one day as well. There's about 300 Monroes to get through, so better get cracking. Love this song. Just thought it was so apt. One of those wind farms again. So we're moving from highlands into kind of middlelands at this point in time. None of these mountains are that high. None of them are Monroes. Monroe being over 3,000 feet. We start to see greenery again. as we enter the kind of north end of Fife. All the browneries looking north and the greeneries looking south. Yeah, this point in the flight you're starting to get a little bit bored because you've been exhilarated by those mountains. Now you've got flat fields. It's a River Tay, it's the Friarton Ridge, so it's Perth. So it's the M90 that goes from Edinburgh to Dundee. So it goes over that bridge and then kind of runs parallel with the River Tay up to Dundee. Drove it many times when I had to work up in Aberdeen during the week. Yeah, a glimpse of the bridges. One for cars, one for trains. A bit misty, but that's Dundee. Dundee's probably about halfway from where I stay to Aberdeen. It's that Friarton Bridge again. Oh, Confluns Castle, yeah, a nice little castle perched on the top of the hill, owned by Brian Suter's sister of Stagecoach fame and fortune. So that's Kirkcaldy. Starks Park, that was. That's the Firth of Forth out there. You catch glimpses now and again of the Bass Rock. It's got the largest gannet colony in Northern Europe or something like that. Well worth a trip out there one day in the boat. The Silla 2 from North Berwick. There's the airfield now. Much shorter than Oban. So this was maybe about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, half 3 we got back. Yeah, because I got caught speeding in the A92 on the way home. £60 fine, 3 penalty points. Made it quite a dear day out for me. By the time you include the third cost of the flight and your meal. But was it worth it? Absolutely. So thanks for sharing it with me. And I hope that you like the next episode that I'm going to produce, which is the winter flight that I was speaking about, and I'm going to include the Edinburgh footage on that one as well. So that's us, almost back to exactly where we started from. Would you believe that's February, eh? It was just a perfect day. I've got to say thanks very much to Dave for taking us up, and Mary for being an ideal companion. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and thanks for watching.